Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey into the history of hyperbaric medicine. It's a story that connects, maybe unexpectedly, the daring world of early diving with making some groundbreaking medical treatments.
That's absolutely right. We're going to explore how the real challenges faced by those first explorers of the deep, the pressure, the risks of coming up too fast, how that actually paved the way for therapies using that same idea, compressed gas, to help heal people.
And the roots of this, they go back much further than you might imagine. Legend has it that even Alexander the Great, maybe around 320 BC, apparently took a trip underwater inside something like a glass barrel. Talk about an early experiment.
It really captures the imagination, doesn't it? Probably more folklore than fact, but it does show this long-standing human fascination with being underwater and the ingenuity that sparks. It's interesting, this early curiosity about working under pressure might have subtly planted a seed thinking about what pressure does to the body.
Absolutely. And okay, so Alexander's barrel is legend, but the timeline moves on to more tangible things. We know Leonardo da Vinci sketched diving gear around 1500, but it was Cornelius Drabble in 1620 who built the first, functional diving bell.
Yeah, Drabble's bell was a crucial step, even with its, limitations. It only supplied air at 1 atmosphere, normal pressure like we have now, which meant divers couldn't go very deep or stay bound long. But it was the foundation, really. You see this basic human drive just trying to survive and work under the surface.
Right. Then, jump ahead to 1691, Edmund Halley, yes, the comet guy, he significantly improved the diving bell. He figured out a way to replenish the air supply with weighted barrels sent down from the surface. That was a major breakthrough.
Oh, definitely. Halley's innovation was transformative. It opened up way more possibilities for underwater work. But even with that, early divers ran into serious problems. Ruptured eardrums from the pressure, and of course, decompression sickness, what people call the bends.
Okay, right, the bends.
Yeah, that painful, sometimes fatal thing where dissolved gases, mostly nitrogen, form bubbles in your body if you come up too fast.
So we're seeing this growing awareness of the dangers down there. Now, when does this start to connect with medical thinking? Surprisingly early, actually. In 1662, a British physician, Henshaw, documented the first proposed medical use of compressed air.
It is remarkable, isn't it? This is before oxygen was even discovered. Henshaw designed this airtight chamber, called it a domicilium. He imagined using big bellows to change the pressure inside this room. It kind of highlights this interplay, right, between a good idea and having the science and tech to actually make it work. Without understanding gases and pressure properly or the engineering to control it, Henshaw's idea stayed mostly theoretical.
And his ideas for it were pretty broad, weren't they? He thought it could help digestion, respiration, even prevent lung problems, almost like pressurized preventative medicine.
Exactly. He proposed it could influence basic body functions just by changing the pressure, but it's important there's no actual record of Henshaw treating anyone with it. So you wonder, was it just a concept, or did he run into practical problems using it?
It seems like the idea just vanished for a while.
Yeah.
Because for almost 200 years after Henshaw, hyperbaric therapy didn't really go anywhere. That's a big gap.
It is. It shows how an idea, even a potentially great one, can just lie dormant until, science and technology catch up.
But then the 19th century rolls around and interest picks up again, especially in France. In 1834, a guy named Junod built a hyperbaric chamber specifically for lung conditions, using pressures 2 to 4 times normal atmospheric pressure, what we call ATA.
Junod's work, that's a key revival. He was actively building and using these chambers for specific medical issues. Then, right after him, 1837, Pravaz built an even bigger chamber and used it for a whole range of illnesses. So the belief in its potential was definitely growing.
And it wasn't just fixed chambers. In 1877, Fontaine developed the first mobile hyperbaric operating theater. Can you imagine? Doing surgery under pressure.
That's truly incredible for the time. It shows real enthusiasm, this conviction that compressed air could actually improve surgical outcomes. And by then, these chambers were popping up in major cities across Europe.
Sounds like it was becoming pretty widespread. But here's the kicker. There wasn't really a solid scientific reason behind all these treatments, was there? Seems more like observation, trial and error, and the way they used it varied a lot.
Exactly. They were using compressed air, but they didn't fully grasp the mechanics, especially about oxygen. See, at 2 atmospheres of air pressure, the amount of oxygen forcing its way into the blood doubles compared to sea level. Think of the air we breathe as a mix. Oxygen's just part of it. That partial pressure is oxygen's push in the mix. Under pressure, that push increases, more oxygen dissolves in the blood. This extra oxygen probably caused any good effects they saw. But if they'd used pure oxygen at that same pressure, the increase would have been 12 times higher. So this lack of basic understanding really limited how precise or effective they could be.
It almost sounds like some places were marketed more like, I don't know, health spas than serious medical centers. Junod even called his treatment a compressed air bath.
That's a really good point. There was probably a big element of novelty, maybe even placebo effect in some cases. But still, the fact that people like Burton wrote whole books on it and Arnsenius reviewed like 300 papers by 1887, it shows there was real sustained interest in the medical world.
And it wasn't just Europe, right? The first chamber in North America popped up in Oshawa, Canada, 1860. Then the U.S., Corning, New York, 1861. Both apparently used for treating nervous disorders.
Those early North American ones show the idea was crossing the Atlantic, even if the science behind it was still, well, a bit shaky.
Okay, so we've had this initial wave, this enthusiasm for hyperbaric air. Then we get to the era of Dr. Cunningham in the 1920s, Kansas City. This is a really dramatic part of the story.
It really is. Cunningham got a lot of public attention. He started using his chamber to treat victims of the Spanish flu pandemic. His thinking was he noticed death rates seemed higher at higher altitudes, so he figured barometric pressure was involved somehow. Cunningham's story is, well, it's fascinating, but also a bit of a cautionary tale, about how appealing a new treatment can seem when you don't fully understand it. Back then, before really strict clinical trials, charismatic people could gain traction with just anecdotes. It highlights why skepticism and solid science are so crucial.
And he claimed to see some pretty amazing improvements in really sick patients.
He did. He reported significant recoveries in patients who were cyanotic, blue from lack of oxygen, and comatose. This created a lot of hope, a lot of attention, but it also shows the dangers when enthusiasm gets ahead of the science.
Tragically so. There was a fire in his chamber in 1923. Luckily, no deaths then. But later, a mechanical failure caused a total loss of pressure, and all his patients died. Just devastating.
A truly devastating event. And a really stark reminder of the risks when you push medical tech without fully controlling or understanding the forces involved. Yet, even after that, Cunningham's belief in hyperbaric air just didn't waver. He went on to treat all sorts of things: syphilis, high blood pressure, diabetes, even cancer.
His theory was that these were all linked to anaerobic infections, right?
Right.
Things that can't survive in oxygen. And compressed air would fight them.
Yeah, that was his theory. It wasn't really validated scientifically like he thought, but it drove him on. In 1928, he built this absolutely massive 5-story hyperbaric chamber in Cleveland, the biggest in the world. Sounds more like a building than a medical device.
It really does. But as his fame grew, the American Medical Association, the AMA, started asking for proof, for evidence, to back up his claims. And that's where things started to unravel.
Exactly. Despite lots of requests, Cunningham just didn't provide much documented research. No papers in respected journals. The AMA eventually censured him in 1928. They basically criticized him for focusing more on money than on good science. Their statement, saying his work seemed tinctured much more strongly with economics than with scientific medicine, well, that says a lot.
He kept getting chances to show his data, but he just didn't. And in 1937, that huge chamber was taken down, sold for scrap metal. It pretty much marked the end, for a time, of using hyperbaric air for general medical problems in the U.S.
It's such a powerful cautionary tale, isn't it, about why evidence-based medicine is so critical. Cunningham clearly had enthusiasm, but without the rigorous science, his work got discredited and the field took a temporary hit.
So that's the hyperbaric air story. But it doesn't end there, because next comes hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBO. Oxygen itself, discovered way back in 1775 by Priestley.
Yes, but surprisingly, even after people started using compressed air, oxygen wasn't immediately added to the chambers. There was actually quite a bit of early fear about oxygen toxicity, stemming from reports by Lavoisier and Seguin back in 1789.
Right, and even when Beddoes and Watt wrote the first book on oxygen therapy in 1796, they completely steered clear of talking about using it under pressure.
That early caution really stuck around. Even Paul Burt, who did huge work understanding pressure physiology in 1878, he recommended normobaric oxygen at normal pressure, not hyperbaric, for treating decompression sickness.
It took a while for that thinking to change. There was an early system, Draeger, in 1917, designed to treat diving accidents with hyperbaric oxygen, but it never actually got produced. Fascinating what if.
But the real turning point, the pivotal year, was 1937, the same year Cunningham's chamber came down. That's when Benken and Shaw successfully used hyperbaric oxygen to treat decompression sickness. That really marks the beginning of modern HBO therapy.
And from there, things really started moving. Looking at the timeline, Haldane showed way back in 1895 that oxygen could stop carbon monoxide poisoning in mice.
Yeah, that early finding was crucial, even if applying it to humans took time.
Yeah.
Then later we see HBO used for leprosy in 1938 and experimentally for CO poisoning in animals in 42.
And then the 50s and 60s brought some huge leaps, using HBO to make radiation therapy for tumors more effective, doing heart surgery inside hyperbaric chambers, even, amazingly, keeping pigs alive without blood using HBO. That's incredible. Think about that, you. Keeping pigs alive with no blood just using hyperbaric oxygen. It really shows the kind of profound, unexpected power this therapy has.
Borima, often called the father of modern hyperbaric medicine, was key in a lot of that work. He really showed the significant physiological impact of high-pressure oxygen. The first successful treatment of human carbon monoxide poisoning with HBO also happened in 1960. Then came using it for gas gangrene and showing it could protect the brain during ischemia, reduced blood flow.
And the list of applications just kept growing, treating blocked arteries, serious bone infections, stroke, even looking into its potential for things like multiple sclerosis and sudden hearing loss.
And through the 70s and 80s, you saw this global spread of hyperbaric centers, especially big expansions in Japan, the USSR, and China. Professional groups formed, like the American College of Hyperbaric Medicine, and the Undersea Medical Society even added hyperbaric to its name in '86, showing how important the field had become.
It really paints this picture of a long, winding road, doesn't it? From those early diving challenges and the somewhat speculative uses of compressed air, all the way to developing a scientifically grounded therapy using hyperbaric oxygen.
Absolutely. The history of hyperbaric medicine is just a great example of how trying to overcome nature's limits, like the underwater world, can lead to really unexpected, important medical advances. That core link between diving medicine and the broader uses of hyperbaric therapy, it's undeniable, and it still drives innovation today.
So as you think about this deep dive we've taken, maybe ponder this. How many other seemingly out there ideas or early, maybe not fully scientific explorations happening right now, might actually hold the key to major medical breakthroughs down the line? It really makes you wonder what surprising discoveries are still waiting out there as we keep pushing our understanding.